evening, everybody, and a warm welcome to all the participants who've joined on this virtual roundtable. This title is, of course, a digital customer experience for future fit fashion retail. And at the outset, I'd like to thank India Fashion Forum and the team at Instituto Marangoni for having made this show possible for us. A special thanks to Mr. Roy and his wonderful team who helped to get this show on the road. A little bit of, sort of background about the Instituto Marangoni. It has many global offices, and the India chapter has opened up in Mumbai in 2017 for both undergraduate and postgraduate courses. In the meanwhile, we have a lot of interest in the various courses that they have for fashion design, fashion styling, and the fashion business. And the aim, of course, is to bridge the sharpest minds in the industry and sort of, get them into understanding the ground realities by smartly merging both innovation, luxury, and technology, and give them a little business sense. Of course, India Fashion Forum doesn't need too much of introduction. It's been around for about 20 years now. And ever since its inception, it's now grown to be the largest fashion retail intelligence platform. It's been able to really fantastically blend not only world-class ideas, but leaders, products, innovations, and insights, and therefore created a launch pad for many organizations, big and small. So thank you to both of these institutions to having made this wonderful event possible. I have with me an awesome, very, very talented and a set of panel members here who have both depth and width of experience. So before I take a time to sort of introduce each one of them to you, I just give you a small background about myself. I'm Jacqueline Munkur, and I am going to be the moderator for this session. I have more than 2 decades of industry experience across 5 verticals: FMCG, consumer durables, supply chain, retail, of course, and telecom. And it's really, of these, I've spent about 16 years of customer experience, handling both leadership roles and strategic and operational roles. And it's really, I think, in the last 8 or 9 years that we've seen the smart amalgamation or integration of technology into customer experience, because we've seen such huge benefits both for employee customer engagement, of course, employee engagement if you have frontline salespeople, and of course, it has improved both revenue and cost lines. So I work with a lot of companies who are taking these baby steps into, embracing technology, and there are yet those who have already, had certain kind of tweaking with their traditional processes and using technology and taking them to the next level. So that's enough with my introduction. I now take a little time to introduce each one of our marvelous participants of this panel. So first off, in alphabetical order, is Amit Chaudhary. Amit, hi, welcome to the session today. Amit is the co-founder of Lenskart. He has about 11 years of experience with Lenskart itself, and Lenskart, as you know, has really taken the world by storm, so to say. They actually entered into a category where nobody gave them too much of a hope. They've done awesomely well. They have re-engineered the entire meaning of having wonderful online experiences. And now Amit has been actually instrumental in creating a revolutionary growth even in the offline space. So they are a true digital player. Amit has a bachelor's in engineering from the Birla Institute of Technology. And really what moves him is his passion in technology, analytics, and operations. So welcome once again, Amit, and lovely to have you here with us.
Nice introduction, thanks.
Next on the show will be Barbara. Barbara is joining us from the UK. Barbara has a very multi-varied experience. She, of course, has worked with multinational brands like Marks and Spencer's, H&M, as well as Mango. She's done a lot of hands-on experience by sort of having assignments which have really merged technology, and she has seen the benefits, and she has lots to tell us about her experiences in this space. Apart from that, and what's very interesting is, like a true global citizen, she's been really had a lot of hands-on experience in China, India, Russia, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. And apart from that, she also consults with Instituto Marangoni, as well as a guest lecturer in the London College of Fashion. So lots of excitement in your profile. Barbara, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me over. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you.
Good afternoon too. Debasmita, hi and welcome. Debasmita, as you all know, is the Associate Director and Head of Marketing of Puma India. Debasmita actually has made this interesting segue from being a professional tennis player and moved so well into the corporate world. So that's really so interesting and heartening to note. But besides that, she's really had a huge impact in driving Puma to become the #1 sports brand in India. She looks after the digital and influencer marketing as well as e-commerce marketing. So a very, very important role, especially in the post-COVID pandemic. I think this is going to be a very, very integral part of any organization's success. Besides that, she's delivered award-winning campaigns like Swade Gully, which was, I'm told, the only Indian campaign which has been shortlisted for the Cannes Award 2018, and the #DoYou campaign, which broke the Guinness World of Records in 2016. So amazing work in the social space there, Debasmita, and we really very fortunate to have you here. Welcome to the session and lots to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for such a kind sort of an introduction, and very excited to have this discussion going. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I now move to Krishnan. Krishnan works with Titan, and he is both their Chief Digital and Information Officer. So Krishnan has an awesome background. He is, pedigreed really, IIT alumnus, IIT Mumbai alumnus, IIM Kolkata. And really what takes his passion, he says, is when I'm able to really develop new age experiences for my customer by smartly, mixing up the physical and digital products and services. And that really, keeps him all enthusiastic and motivated. Lovely to have you, Krishnan. And because Titan has really straddled, it's a national player, long in the Indian market, and straddled both the physical and online spaces so smartly. We're going to hear lots and lots of interesting experiences from you. Welcome to us. Welcome to this roundtable. I now move lastly, but best for the last, Ranjan Sharma. So Ranjan is with Bestseller India, and Ranjan actually has 3 hats which he wears. He wears the head of SCM, he heads the captive e-commerce business, and he also is the CIO. So that's really very, very interesting. And in 23 years of experience, he tries to bring the best in innovation in the companies he's associated with. He's moved through multiple roles in multiple corporates, and I think he says he spearheads the strategic and tactical initiatives wherever he goes, so that it brings great benefits to the organizations he's associated with. So it's really lovely to have you with us, Ranjan. Welcome once again.
Hey, thank you, Jacqueline.
Okay, so can I now throw this open to our conversation, because that's what I think the participants of this session are really waiting for. So first off, a question to you, Ranjan, because you were patient enough to wait, is, in this post-COVID scenario, everybody's talking about, people not parting so much with money, and, a lot of spooking of really the customer's psyche, and they're just really worried. So what really are the many initiatives that you must have planned or already are in the pipeline, so that, you can take this benefit, so that you can meet the festival season with a lot of confidence?
Yeah, so there are quite a lot of initiatives. So what COVID has actually done is it has expedited the whole of the omni-channel process, the whole of the social commerce. So Omni is a journey that we were already in. So last year we started with our Endless Aisle. A couple of years back, we started with our e-commerce. The idea was to merge that whole piece together and create a really phygital experience from a customer, or an omni-channel experience for a customer. What COVID has done, or what we have done in the last 3-4 months that we've been at home, is we've tried to bring in all of these together in terms of saying, how could you shop at this e-commerce website I could ship it to you from the stores, from the nearest store, so that I reduce the time to market. The second is, though customers are not willing to come out and shop at the stores, but then the other benefit is there is a huge amount of customer who is also willing to actually buy from the stores, because ours is 85% of our business actually pre-COVID used to come from our offline stores, which means that there's a large customer base that we already have. And now that customer always went to us, to the stores, more from an experience perspective. E-commerce has still not been able to take the experience to the similar level, because ours is more of a assisted selling model in the stores, where we have fashion consultants who actually help you decide, help you choose what you want to buy and what's going to help you to dress well. We're trying to figure out how do we bring that same experience when the customer is still sitting at home. And we are trying to bring in social commerce, which is commerce on WhatsApp, commerce on Facebook Messenger, commerce on Insta. How could the customer sitting at home be able to engage with the stores, not just with a bot, because that becomes little too mechanical, but also bringing in the human element, because the store guys are already there in the store. They understand the customers well. They understand the product well. How do you create a blend of these two to be able to deliver the whole experience to the customer, where you're just not leaving like like in an e-commerce, the customer has to decide whatever he has to buy on himself. Rather, you bring in that expertise that you provide at the store as well to be able to help that consumer to decide on the products, go through the entire discovery process, and also close the entire loop and deliver the product to the consumer. Because
Wonderful.
people have become really digital, and one thing that COVID has actually done is it has made actually everyone very digital savvy. Even
Yes,
my
yes.
my
The
mom and my dad have become
apprehensions,
so
yes,
common.
yes, yes.
They become so comfortable working on a mobile device, working on WhatsApp, which they were
So
not
true.
earlier.
So true. Do you really, what really, compelled you to do that? And how do you feel this post-COVID thing will really, sort of use both the assets that you have to get the benefits that you wanted?
I think to answer your first question, Jacqueline, first of all, thank you for having me here, and it's a real privilege to be with all of you. When we started the business, we were very clear that we need to provide glasses to consumers, because there's a dire need of solving the supply chain problem in India when we talk about eyewear. And while we were doing this, we also realized that that online alone cannot be the answer for that, right? Because there is an element of service, which is, say, eye checkup, and the people trying their frames, like how Ranjan was saying, there's a lot of assistance needed in that purchase. So when we are solving the supply chain, you also need to give access, and that is where we came and said that, let us also open stores and give access to consumers. To just give an insight that in India, we just have 30,000 optical stores for 1.3 billion people, right? And which is so less. It's almost like one store for 50,000 people. But of course, it's more dense towards the urban area and very less towards the rural areas. But somehow or the other, when we think of a larger picture, and we want to get as deep as possible inside this category, we thought that it's not about a channel as such, and doing both together. So that was the whole strategy, online, offline. Today we are present in 130 cities, trying to go as depth as possible from an India context, wherever we can manage the stores, and of course take this number to as high as possible where the demand is met. The other thing about the COVID thing is, which is very interesting, since we were born on the cloud, and when we say born on the cloud, where we understood the online offline world from online as a first perspective. So we changed the rules of retail in a way where, for an example, we always thought retail was very inventory incentive, because you have to keep a lot of inventory at the store, right? We changed that fundamental, and we said that we'll never keep any inventory at the store. It will just be display pieces, and people will choose that. And by virtue of choosing what they're choosing, we'll still do e-commerce to them. We'll still send it as an e-commerce. So we never had a problem of inventory at the store. We also started realizing who are our customers, and where should we open our store. And we started to see our online traffic. And when we analyze, so for an example, if you have an online conversion rate of say 4%, right? So what are the other 96 doing? Nobody will come to a eyewear website just to window shop. There was something or the other which they were missing, which online was not solving for them alone, which was leading them to another optical store. So now at least what is happening is they're moving from one Lenskart interaction, which is online, to offline. So our overall conversion rate goes away. What happened during COVID was interesting. These entire consumer base of ours was either online or offline, but now they know about both the channels. It is irrespective of the channel, right? So earlier, even if you were trying to create a flow diagram where the customer is entering through one channel and transacting on the other, now we are fairly confident that it is irrespective of the channel that we need to serve, right? And we have to make it as seamless as possible between the channels. So that has happened. That has helped. Overall, even our staff, all our 4,000 people on the ground, they have learned a new way, right? Now they are not dependent on the fact where they will ask the consumer to come to the store. So now they are also helping the consumer on the phone, on the video, trying to make the transaction on the video call, saying that why don't you make a transaction sitting back home and I'll help you in whatever way. So they'll do a WhatsApp call with the consumer and we'll show them around, or a Zoom call like this, how we are doing it, and we'll make sure that the consumer chooses their product. And
you're truly using technology as an enabler, yes, and then to complete the story, yes.
Yeah. So it was more possible because we all got time, and since there was no other option, we enabled all of these technologies at the ground level, which is not gonna end when the COVID ends. Hopefully it ends soon, but it will stay forever. So it's a new way of,
it's an investment for future,
and it's efficient.
Right. So how has Titan looked at it from a strategic point of view, that with this kind of a situation, how are they going to really look at things going forward?
Right. So my response is not COVID, right? We have started this journey quite some years back, but obviously it has accelerated now. And like Amit just mentioned, we also foresee that it's going to be the new normal, right? So just to tell customers absolutely want to feel the product at the time when they make a buying decision. But right now we are also seeing very encouragingly that the combination of trust in the brand and our own retail store folks' inclination and capability to connect with customers online and actually do a video demo. I mean, in some cases, they kind of wear the jewelry themselves. So we have folks who have learned to be e-demonstrators of the jewelry. So obviously the situation is bringing forth different compulsions, behaviors, and capabilities as well, right? So the combination is working well. And what we have done is to make our national inventory visible to all stores, right? I mean, when things are going well, you have each store managing its own show, so to say, right? But now, because we want to be able to showcase the national inventory, we have enabled our retail store teams in one store to see the products in some other store. And very shortly, we are going to be able to roll out a joint video calling capability as well, right? So if a customer says, no, I don't quite like this necklace, can you show me something else? You can quickly search the global inventory. And what we also have is image-based search. So AI, ML, it's not just data, but images and other forms of capabilities that we are also harnessing. So I can search for a necklace which looks similar to a necklace which the customer is viewing, but does not quite like. The system will pop up, let's say, 5 or 6 other choices,
options, yes,
which may be in some other store. And then we can connect that store's colleague, depending on, of course, the store status, but that's a separate matter. And that colleague could probably showcase the necklace which the customer likes the image of. So this combination of WhatsApp, live chat, social media, I mean, every digital channel known to all of us, we are harnessing in different ways. And I think the important thing here is to be able to draw the round trip so that the customer doesn't perceive the drop between one channel engagement and the next.
Exactly.
Right? So the backend integration is really the game here. And once we're able to get it right, which we are in the process of, then the word omni-channel really is actually a company way of looking at things. Right. The word itself
really
exists actually from the
these
company point of view. It doesn't
Yes,
exist from the
absolutely.
customer's point of view, or at least should not. Right.
Yes.
Hopefully all of us will get there, and we are striving to get there. But obviously in certain categories, digital will never reach the enjoyment or the feel. I mean, imagine a Tanera sari, Kanjivaram or delicate cotton. How can you convey it? And I'm sure Ranjan, I think before I got disconnected, was speaking about that as well. Right?
Exactly. I think he's in the apparel
There are
business,
limitations,
so
but
touch
there are
and feel
virtues.
is like part of it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. Barbara, I'll turn to you again, you know, working from what Krishnan just said is the personalization of experiences, right? So you did a lot of work because you're in fashion retail for a long time, and you did a lot of work with Marks and Spencer's on this personalization bit. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much again for having me here. It's an honor to be able to meet you all and be part of this panel discussion. Yes, my couple of projects that I led for Marks and Spencer International was actually connected to artificial intelligence. So I became fascinated by artificial intelligence and all these possible uses in retail first time around in 2013. When I was appointed to actually project lead the opening of the first international e-commerce boutique concept store in Amsterdam for Marks and Spencer. So the project, first of all, was kind of the start of how we were going to integrate an offline traditional space like Marks and Spencer together with the first forms of digitalization and interactive digital consumer experience. So the boutique, as it was set up, the majority of the retail space was actually majorly taken by food. Reason being is because Marks and Spencer, as you might be aware, both in UK and internationally, it's very famous for its food. So we wanted food to still be the key driver for the footfall in store. Nevertheless, obviously, the important and exciting part was the digital little section of this boutique. Even though it was digital, it still had a offline space with a completely new interior design, which was at the time sort of on the lines of industrial sort of chic, which was in line with trends at the time, but also with the local culture that was hosting, which was obviously Holland. And the digital part was actually gravitating around 2 digital screens. And in those 2 digital screens, the customer could interact and see the collection and sort of have like a playful experience, engaging with the collection on a screen, and then eventually decide to buy this collection through iPads that was set in store with our staff. My role with that, at the time, I worked very closely with an IT expert. So I was deciding each of the items that would feature both in the physical space and in the screen. It would have been at the beginning roughly around 25 items, and it was they were grouped in 3 trends. And for each of those items, then I physically created outfits to go with each of these items and as many possible ways to wear for it. And then with the help of my IT theory, then he introduced it with, at the time, an elementary algorithm into this digital screen. Therefore, the type of engagement that the customer could have, they could scroll through each of the individual items, which the artificial intelligence would have by then represented with like a digital drawing. And then as she or he was deciding to click on each of these items, automatically the algorithm would suggest the outfits that I would have created to go alongside with each of these items. So very much still early days. The algorithms were not as sophisticated as obviously we see nowadays. Nonetheless, the very first integration of a digital and a physical experience in the same space. And obviously the customer then could decide to select the whole outfit or just the individual item, and then eventually proceed to interact with our physical sales advisor that would, through an iPad, sort of seal the transaction. And then we would obviously have like a delivery set either in store for them the following day or in a week's time to their own home. So very early days, but definitely like innovative.
But it's a good platform for which, you know, the next steps can really get developed and, you know, fine-tuned, because artificial intelligence, after all, is what it gets smarter as you go on, and with more data and more information being fed to it. So I mean, I appreciate your humility in saying that, you know, it's early days, but I mean, we are starting on a journey.
Of course. And I think fast forward then in 2016 is where then I was involved as a digital content manager for M&S with actually an artificial intelligence driven personalized styling service, which was called Try Tuesday. Very much in line to what Stitch Fix in US does, which you might be aware is this multi-billion fashion startup company. So the service, it's basically the customer is taken online through a digital survey, and this digital survey allow the start of the collecting of the data. You guys spoken before how important are data, and they're becoming more and more important. And data at the time was the only, and still is, the only way that we can get to know truly our customers. So the digital survey would start collecting some basic data on customer, whether height, you know, age, and sort of like style preferences. And then automatically the algorithm will start suggesting like ready-made outfits for the customer to eventually purchase and then obviously receive at home. The way I was involved, which is again is important for me to stress, that there is still a huge amount of human input into this. And I think it's really important that to continue as well in the future, is that I was actually behind selecting the items that would be basically the key items that seasonally we would suggest to the customer. And then I created a body shape training for the physical stylist that was behind the learning machine, so that eventually between the data collected to the customer and the knowledge that she would have with the body shape, she was able to refine the choice that the artificial intelligence would have made, refine it, and then finalize it, make it even more personalized and send it to the customer. So almost like trying to achieve the highest possible satisfaction at the back end of the customer to obviously reduce the customer return rates.
Oh, that's really, really lovely. So, Debasmita, I must turn to you now because, you know, Barbara just touched upon personalization. And I think, you know, in the kind of category that you know, are such a large brand, I'm sure you must be having some initiatives which you have taken or you want to further develop, you know, considering the current situation, considering the fact that festival season is around the corner, etc.
So through this period, what we noticed is there are a couple of trends which were coming up, especially when we looked at how consumers behaving in the social media, right? So one very strong element that came out is the home fitness bit. You know, people, while fitness was something India was getting towards, but I think today with the whole COVID situation, to build immunity, one realized the importance of fitness. And we saw a huge spike in that in most consumers across age. So that was when we saw this trend, and immediately we wanted to sort of enable our consumers. So what we did is, you know, we curated a line which is more for home fitness, more like relaxed workout, because given a sports and lifestyle brand, we have the know-how and the product,
yes,
yeah, and the product mix. So we actually curated some of this for the home fitness aspect of it. While the other trend which came out is how consumers are doing their, you know, Zoom parties and even work from home. What they constantly looking at is more comfortable loungewear, where they could be comfortable going in front of a camera to do their meetings or even to chat up with their friends on a Friday night. So again, we curated a line which kind of caters to this need. We're saying, you know, this is the collection that you can pick out from if you need to just kind of lounge around, look your best within the confines of your home and not going OTT, yet being stylish. So these were some of the trends that we saw online. So both from Instagram, we have our own Instagram India handle, and we kind of curated that, and we used our influencers and our assets to kind of communicate that further. We use the same communication on our e-com platform, and also, we sell at marketplaces in Myntra and every other platform like Flipkart and Amazon. We try to sort of take that communication in all the platforms that we exist in. So that's from the whole online e-commerce aspect. In terms of retail, we all know that it's a very tactile business. I mean, while people are buying online, etc., the experience is what makes it a retail therapy. You go to the store, you try out many things, and you go around, there's a window shopping, there is a joy. So while there is fear in consumer, there's still, when after lockdown things were opening up, we did see, people wanted to step out and go back, have a sense of normalcy, back in shopping. But they had only one fear of safety. So that is where our focus completely went when it comes to primming up our stores, which was opening up. What are the safety measures we are taking? What is the social distancing we are able to provide at any given time? How many consumers can walk around the store? Even there is an assistant who is taking them through, are they maintaining enough space? Even for trial, what is happening to the shoes that are being, people are
touching and putting on and trying on, right? Yes.
What is the sanitization? And so we actually created a whole manual which sort of went across. We spoke to all our sort of store staff to understand, and we also created a content like a handbook sort of a thing, which we put out and we sent out. And of course, talking about data, I mean, we have collected a lot of data, be from our e-commerce and also from the consumers who come to our store. And it was very important to communicate to them, we are prepping ourselves so that you have the safest sort of a experience anytime that you feel you want to step out of your house and you want to experience retail therapy. So that became a very critical aspect of our comeback.
Yeah, the establishing of comfort. Yes. And welcome back to the store.
Yeah.
Krishnan, when we talk about getting customers in store, I mean, we're talking about this worry and of course, we have this whole paraphernalia which we've built in so as to establish that comfort. But I think Titan sits on a huge loyalty base, right? And this loyalty base, I'm sure, would be your first line of control, so to say, or first port of call when you have to get people, to sort of engage with you and then come back and start buying once again. So can you tell us some sort of initiatives which you would be doing perhaps to leverage or monetize this base which you have?
Well, we have been monetizing for the last several years. In fact, we hope that by the end of this year, our Encircle loyalty base will be 20 million customers. So in that sense, we are certainly one of the largest programs in India. So our last financial year revenue from campaigns analyzed and run by the central team digitally, that revenue itself, the attributable revenue, came to several hundred crores. So we do understand the space. It's a question of identifying the right segments, the right user lifecycle journey and life stage journey as well.
Right,
so for example,
really, yes.
Absolutely. I mean, elementary examples abound. Birthdays and anniversaries are perfect for buying and gifting jewelry and watches, for example, right? In fact, we ran a data enrichment program recently. 3 million customers' data we managed to enrich. So customers were consented to share their data with us. And we had so many retail colleagues who actually were sitting at home, right? Because of the stores being locked. So we enabled them also to call out. And so we had several thousand people calling on the same day, different customer sets. And one of the questions we asked, for example, is, do you wear spectacles? So customers who have never had any contact with our eyewear business now have consented to
it. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Receive a call from us regarding our eyewear
reason. Yes. Cross-selling, upselling. I mean, those are bad words.
Absolutely.
To use,
I mean, those are old.
But actually, that's reality.
Right. So those are old terms, frankly, right? I mean, again, those are company terms. But from the customer perspective, how can you be relevant and timely?
Contextual,
is really the game.
So
that
correct.
Even if the customer gets over-communicated to, I mean, all of us receive so many SMSs and emailers. In fact, my own colleagues sometimes express fatigue on the number of mails that Titan is sending them. Right?
I get that.
Happens.
I get that.
But if it can be relevant and timely, at least it is valuable, even if probably overdone. So we have to take a chance in these times. And so analytics is absolutely imperative. And the fact that we have a database of loyal customers. And in fact, in some of our businesses, our loyal customers contribute a great deal. That's true of so many industries and so many companies as well. And our sari business, for example, has declared complete dependence on our Encircle loyalty system for this year, with ATL and other budgets coming under the scanner in all companies like ours. We are sworn to leverage our existing loyalty.
I see everybody nodding their heads. The moment you said
absolutely,
budget,
absolutely.
I mean, everybody shook their head. You know, it's like you touched my soul, not my heart. You touched my soul.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. So I think I can stop right here. It's
yes.
very clear to, I'm sure, my co-panelists and the very literate audience.
Right. But Amit, drawing back the same story about relationship, I think you would have a good enough base, and you're in a category which has you can have the opportunity of building deep relationships. Do you have some stories which you could tell, such that people here can get inspired and probably sort of apply them in the kind of organizations that they are in?
Like, yeah, for an example, like I think how Ranjan was mentioning and Krishna was mentioning, that like when COVID happened and on 22nd March or 23rd of March, we all realized that we have to close down everything. One thing we were very sure that we need to keep on moving, right? We just cannot shut everything down. And we are an essential business. You can't live your day without your spectacles if you actually need it, right? I see Ranjan and Barbara wearing it, so I have to ask them what is their day without it, right? So the whole point was that how do you do that? And we were like 4,000 people at the ground. We knew that we have to enable it some way or the other. So what was interesting, over the next 48 hours, we were able to bring everybody on cloud telephony, and we made sure that every of our 1 crore consumers are reached out. And that was like something amazing, where we were checking on every consumer. We were asking them whether they are safe, whether they need any eyewear needs. We are there to serve. And that was a huge, I would say a huge brand building in a way, where it was beyond ATL or BTL. It was really talking to your consumer.
It was the human touch, yes. The connect.
We have never seen such a positive response ever. We also embarked upon thoughts while we were doing this, and we were taking feedback from consumers, that a lot of them were doctors, and they needed products while they were serving the situation. Like they were warriors, frontline warriors, and were serving policemen. There were a lot of nurses who needed it. And so we launched a campaign where we started shipping out glasses to them. And that was like, in a week or so, we did 10,000. And then we coordinated with government organizations and government itself to make sure we deliver more. This was a huge success, and I think this only COVID could have made it possible. So on a positive.
But it's also the innovation, and where you're using adversity really, to plot your next steps, and everything need not only be a dark cloud.
Yeah, this was all possible because of technology. Else we could have just thought that, okay, let's let everything open and we'll then act. But since we were acting from day one, this was possible. The other thing, what Ranjan was telling about the entire trial piece, now we have made it live, and that happened because of COVID. We realized that some way or the other, we need to make our infinite aisle in a way where people can try it. We always had this try-on feature only at our website, but we took it to the next level where we brought in the real augmented reality at the store, and I was just configuring it while we are discussing, and I'd like to present, if that's possible, that you can actually do it. Now today, when a consumer enters our shop, we make sure he is part of the journey, where he has left online and he can continue offline, or if he has done his bit in the offline store, he can go back home and still continue. And like if I share, we made it live, a similar thing like this on our store, where somebody can go and do a virtual try-on at the store itself. So they don't need to even spend a lot of time at the store, right? And they can actually choose from a digital way Like if you see, I'm not wearing the spectacle, but it doesn't feel like I'm not wearing it. So I can choose my product on a augmented reality.
I'm sorry, Amit, we're not able to sort of.
Okay, I was actually screen sharing it.
I'm not too
Okay.
sure whether that's...
I'm actually able to see what Amit is simulating.
Yeah, even I'm able to see what Amit is showing.
Okay.
Amen.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is what enabled us. Now all our 650 stores are carrying this, where customer can enter this, what they are liking, they can choose there, and they can go back home and can make a purchase. So it is a real online offline omni-channel experience where one channel is helping the other. Whether you are online, you are helping offline. Whether you are offline, you are helping online. And that is what real omni-channel play, as Krishna was mentioning, it is a company objective.
Absolutely.
It's not
It's just an artificial demarcation of channels. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Customer really doesn't have those kind of problems with him. There are no boundaries in the customer's mind. Absolutely. Correct. Lovely. Thank you so very much. That was nice. So the last question, and I think I'll direct it at Ranjan. Again, continuing the conversation which Krishnan has started, saying for jewelry, you have trust. Okay. And you obviously have augmented information with respect to the purity of the jewelry. So you know exactly what you're getting is what you're seeing. I mean, what you're seeing is what you're getting. So if I take it to apparel, okay, and Ranjan, you know that, and I think a lot of you will resonate that you'd like to touch, you'd like to feel the apparel. So is there something that you can probably do, to sort of get this thing augmented by sort of technology, so that, the customer says that, okay, I'll yet buy, even though I'm not touching it and I'm not sort of feeling the fabric or seeing the style?
Yeah, so I think technology is reaching there. Do you have a technology which completely does it? Maybe no. Because fabric is so different. One fabric is so different from another, and when you the same fabric, when you stitch different dresses, they would all have different falls. They will have different fits, and hence it's not really 100% possible today. Maybe with the amount of technology that's available to be able to replicate it digitally 100%. But yes, you can still give a flavor of it. You can still give a feel to the consumer on a digital medium in terms of saying, how would the product look on you? Because a very, very important part of every fabric or any product that especially in women's wear, is about the silhouette of the product, the fit of the product, you might at many a times you would really want to see how does that product looks on you, how does that particular color looks on your skin tone. How does that particular product looks in a specific light, in a specific background, with specific whatever lipstick or many more things, and the consumer actually really wants to try that out. So
in our the ensemble space, really that the whole persona really
absolutely
and not product.
So it's not just about that particular top or that particular dress or that particular jumpsuit. It's about the whole ensemble, the whole look, the whole outfit, which is so important in fashion space. Touch and feel definitely is important. But then in a digital space, yes, you can give them a sense of how the product would look like, how the feel would be from the fabric. But then giving that complete feel, I think that's the reason why you still have offline retail stores. Physical stores are really they're going to survive and they're going to be there. They're not going to go away anytime soon.
Pre-COVID world, a lot of the IT budget was assigned to enhance in-store experience. What will happen now to the work which has already been started? Would someone want to answer that?
Sure, I can take that. Yes. So
thanks, Ranjan.
Those investments, those investments do continue, right? So again, depends on the business. If the shift to digital can be really decisive, take, let's say, for example, the categories that Amazon derives its highest volumes from, right? And so much of ordering of regular foodstuffs is all online. So even organizations that may have had customers coming in and buying are experiencing a huge surge in online purchase, and that's not going to go away, like we already agreed. So those organizations may reevaluate their in-store investments, but companies like ours, for example, where the physical experience, like we have discussed more than once in the last 1 hour, where the experience is inherent to the purchase itself and the sheer joy of buying, there the investments will continue. In fact, virtual mirror and virtual try-on is something which we have launched on our website and we'll be launching in store as well. So the answer is so industry specific, but wherever the experience of the physical product is intrinsic to the buying decision at scale, there of course in-store investments should and will continue.
Thanks, Krishnan. I think that's something which has resonance across all of us, because we cannot stop, right? So there's no full stop. It will be probably a variation of the expense, but the IT budgets really will not get just frozen, as so to speak. The second question really is, how will the future of fashion content, that is through magazines and TV, change to support this whole online experience?
I think I can take that.
Yes.
I'd say that content now, I think the way we're shooting content has also completely changed, because you don't have very big production budgets anymore, and you're not comfortable doing those large sets with a lot of shoot. So what we are trying to do is find different ways of shooting, where we're using Instagram video and we are trying to shoot through Instagram filter, a lot of filters that we are trying to find ways to, and it's also making the content very contextual. It's very casual. It's in their own home space and not like a beautiful background that you want to showcase, because you're creating content as per the reality. And I think that's something that will continue. Also, large investment in content. I think now, even post-COVID, I think what we are learning through COVID is how can we do interesting content without really investing in large production, large production. So that's going to change. And how do we make it very, very efficient? How do we repurpose our old content? That's also something we are constantly trying to do, because for us, it's all about, what was working in the earlier season. But sometimes if it's not about the product, but it's about a certain style or a certain messaging, you could probably go back to your earlier content, repurpose it, do a certain, layering on it, have a certain treatment done so that it completely looks like a new content, and you put it out. So in terms of content, the three primarily things I think will change. One is the level of investment that you put in creation of content. I think that will definitely reduce without compromising on the output. The second thing is showcasing what the reality is. If the whole thing about staying at home continues for a little while, and people continuing to socialize virtually and working from home continuing for so many companies till mid of next year, how is that portrayed to content is another thing that we are going to showcase. And using a lot of social content is what we will see more than probably physical magazines and TV, more magazines and print. We won't see that much, as much we'll see in social, because we have definitely seen the surge of the amount of content people are consuming.
Definitely. I think behavior changes have really been one of the big ones that we have seen. Yes.
Yeah.
And behavior to sort of embrace, if I can use the word, digital channels. Yes. Compared to print.
Yes.
And yes.
Yeah. If I may say, it's not just about virtual reality, but also making a virtue out of the reality we are in.
Absolutely. Very well put.
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
yeah. So there's another question which is very, very interesting, which says that, could you tell us some of the best innovations which you guys have been inspired by other startups and you have adopted for yourself? So would anyone of you want to tell me about what has inspired
Most
you
of the
in
things,
terms of
so
practice?
let me take that. So most of the things that we've been doing today, they are being done mostly by the startups. So all these new technologies in terms of the virtual trial rooms, or bringing contactless payments. Yes, there are a few people who have been, a few organizations who have been veterans in that space, but then a lot of them are startups. Everything that is getting created is in terms of the experience, either on the website, either on the physical store, wherever it is driven by startups. There are hordes of startups who are doing some fantastic work in terms of customer in terms of analytics, in terms of experiences. I'm sure I for sure can tell you that we've been working with a lot of these startups. I'm sure it's the same with everyone else, because it's no more about those big guys trying to create those startups, because then
Absolutely.
they will take time to
There's a
come
kind
into
of
that innovation
democracy
phase.
which really
Yeah,
has
absolutely.
has taken root. Yes.
No, I
So
think
true.
we at least for Lenskart, that is the energy, the startup energy is one of our values, and we take a lot of cues from various startups. Like one of the startups we also are ending up investing is where they will use AI over our CCTV feed to improve our operations, to increase the customer satisfaction. Right? It's one of the things which came during COVID, and we realized that even social distancing as a parameter, even if you're preaching, you'll need all these tools. And a lot of startups like this, even what I was showing earlier as an augmented reality, is all startup. Without that mentality and without that energy, it's very difficult.
It's absolutely a sharing economy now,
Yeah,
really, in
innovate
the
in the
true
running ship.
sense.
Right? You have to keep on innovating in the running ship.
Yeah, I was also struck by a technology that ASOS here in UK uses in collaboration with an Israeli startup, and is very much on the line of the virtual trying room. But what I like about it is that the customer can actually see that dress or that piece of clothing or outfit on 16 different sizes, so almost like being presented into a screen where she can fully eventually recognize herself as close as possible to one of those. So instead of seeing a model size 8 or 6 wearing, on a catwalk or on a photo shoot, she can virtually have the opportunity to see that piece of clothing almost true to fit to her own body shape. And I think this is a really nice example of empathic communication tone with the customer, and almost like an inclusivity marketing message, which I kind of liked.
Yes, so true. Okay, there's another question here which says, tell us how you can reach the B and C level city customers to enhance their shopping experience, especially since they are a lot more price sensitive.
Especially since?
They are a little more price sensitive. So I think the whole of India is price sensitive in one level or the other. But having said that, I appreciate him. What he's saying is, the B and C level customers,
Sure.
sometimes we don't strategize enough perhaps about them. And if you're looking at, amalgamating these experiences, what are your views on?
I think, Jacqueline, that's changing. So if you look at the recent in the post-COVID or since COVID has started, a lot of the work that is going or that's happening, at least in the digital space, is being realized in the B and C cities. If you look at the last EURS results from Myntra, the major sales actually came from the B and C cities. There's a huge shift which is happening, and everyone is focusing there. That consumer is also, so earlier the biggest challenge was that that consumer was digitally there, but that they still had the luxury of being able to going to a store and buying because it was just next door.
Absolutely.
Today, since they're sitting at home, they don't have a choice but to go and buy digitally. And I think this is that there's a huge shift in the mentality in terms of going and buying, and that barrier that they had in terms of going and buying digitally is gone now. They now feel so much more comfortable going and buying on e-commerce or using those technologies to be able to go and shop. So I think that's changing a big time anyways.
And also telecom has helped a lot. I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're in an era where 1 billion people use internet in India, right? And
absolutely.
While we
and the
are,
other data, and the other data was that apparently tier 2 and tier 3 cities, the explosion of data usage, has come in there, and also the e-commerce data is also showing that buying is really penetrating to B and C tier cities, class
bound to happen
towns.
because the access there is an access problem, and this is something which provides access.
The pipe is quite
There are not reacting to the new styles, right? Not reacting to fashion. Of course they are, and with the internet coming in, it is more and more, and it is a choice now whether they need to travel to a city to get that fashion or just get it at their home, and when it is at the fingertips, everybody will try to
absolutely reach out for it. Yes.
This is the first time where the total data consumption of our tier 2 and beyond cities is more than our tier 1, right? And I think our Prime Minister was mentioning this in the last digital talk he was doing, but this is very exciting, where we are reaching beyond tier 2, tier 3, and getting consumers, and even it will start with browsing, then transactions, and then repeat transactions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
In fact,
Absolutely.
I'd like to add something, like when we had done a big campaign with TikTok last year, when the World Cup had happened and Virat Kohli being one of our ambassadors, we wanted to create an anthem for the fans. We created like fan jerseys that they could purchase. And we were really surprised with the kind of uptake we saw from the interest, both from engagement and from conversion from the tier 2, tier 3 cities. So then we went on to create a product line, which is more like a takedown of our premium product. It's a core line. So you keep the basic things in place. You have the basic silhouette, you have the brand, but it's still brand. It is not like fake product, but it's priced sensitively for that market. And we have seen great sort of, uptake on that. And given some cities where we don't have the retail store, I mean, that is where we are focusing a lot. Even before COVID, we were focusing a lot where the e-com communication and how we reach that consumer, because the only way they can engage with our brand is through e-commerce, because we don't have a brick and mortar store. And we have seen that the interest, the awareness has grown in the way the internet has penetrated and how aware they are, and the purchases are going up. So we've also seen in our category a big pickup in this month.
I'm glad that all the panelists really agree on that, and I think interesting, very, very interesting.
Totally,
okay, there's
totally.
another question. Sorry.
Totally.
Absolutely, yes.
I'll beg your pardon here, and Jacqueline, I will have to quit. I have to read somewhere.
Sure.
Sorry,
Sure.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody. And
yes, we're almost winding up. So but thanks. It was awesome for you having made the time. Thank you so very much, Amit, and we'll stay connected. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Okay, so my next question is, how will visual merchandising change really, and how will it evolve to serve customer experiences after the pandemic? So this is something which perhaps Barbara or Devasmita can use.
Yes. Yeah, I think there will be a lot of work to be done in repurposing the current retail space to be able to accommodate a lot of different permutation post-COVID. Obviously, the sanitizing station, click and collect, stations. So I think the physical space where clothes will be displayed will be certainly, in my opinion, obviously less than what I've experienced through my career. And I think it's a great opportunity in one way to display the clothes in a very clear, and more effective, space. But at the same time, I think there needs to be loads more integration of then, our sales advisors to be able to then be around more and kind of integrate that new customer journey with obviously like a one-to-one consultation, their expertise. I think there's a lot of, work to be done in terms of training our sales advisors into product knowledge even more, so they can be there to integrate in this new physical space. Nonetheless, I still believe that, the display of clothes in the physical space and the experience that the customer can have by walking into a store and seeing the full collection displayed, it's something that it's bound to stay, and it's really, really important.
That's going to be integral. Is that what you feel?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so very much. So that was the last question we had time for. I must thank each one of you panelists for having enriched this entire conversation and given us nuggets of what you've experienced and what you really have, gathered over your years of experience, and added so much of value to this conversation. So thank you very, very much.